Nuremberg marks Russell Crowe and Rami Malek's latest film. It is directed by James Vanderbilt. And this was a movie that really wasn't on my radar, to be honest. But as I am wont to do, I was browsing through the AMC app just to kind of check out what's coming out and what I might want to watch. And based on the title alone, literally, I was like, oh, Nuremberg. This seems like something I should go watch, right? Now, if you're unfamiliar, Nuremberg is the place in Germany where the trials took place. So after World War II, all the war crimes, were put into a courtroom there. And so that's obviously what I know about Nuremberg, and that's what to me was implied by the title of the movie. Now, beyond that, I really didn't know what the framing of this movie would be. Well, what it is Malek plays this psychiatrist assigned by the U.S. to analyze and essentially keep the prisoners alive. The prisoners being Nazi high-ranking generals and leaders after Adolf Hitler committed suicide, right? So they wanted to make sure that they had these people alive, so for questioning, to try them and stuff like that. It's a great cast of characters. John Slattery plays kind of the prison warden. Then you have Michael Shannon, who plays the lead prosecutor, but it mainly focuses on Russell Crowe, who plays Göring, the second in command after Hitler, and Malek, who plays Douglas Kelley, the psychotherapist, tasked to that. And my suspicions of this is going to be an important movie were validated, right? It's a really well done historical piece that's based off of real life events and whatnot. Now, I think it's a truly amazing movie. I think it falls a little bit short of a masterpiece. I think there's certain things that I think happen that we don't quite explore, but needed to happen for other moments. For example, there's this one woman journalist, and we kind of get her throughout. Now, she's needed because of a plot point that happens, and it's a major plot point, but it kind of feels forced just to do that. But even beyond that, the nitpicks, that's such a minor nitpick, because I think everything, as I said, it falls just short of being a masterpiece, but that doesn't mean, it's well and above an amazing movie, and I think people should watch it. Now, at its core, it's kind of about exploring the psychology, right? Hence why you have a psychotherapist, looking at what is evil. And how do you define it, and what made it unique to the Germans at that point in history and stuff like that. And I think it gets to a conclusion without being didactic. And I think, one of the things that drew me to it was because of parallels to real life. Now, some of those parallels might at times feel on the nose for certain people, but that doesn't make them untrue. And from my vantage point, the movie at no point tries to hammer over the head hey, see how this relates to today? No, it just sticks to kind of the facts of what was back then and makes it cinematic. I mean, honest to God, Russell Crowe as Göring, I mean, he's a phenomenal actor. I think he pulled off something very, very spectacular. Because I will admit, at times, you're okay, this person, we know history, has done something quite heinous in ways that can't even be described, and yet he's alluring. Which is, it's weird. But the movie gives you so much to really consider. And even though I said like that it kind of gives and provides an answer, that doesn't mean that it's an easy answer to swallow, and that doesn't mean you don't walk away with having to think about that answer and how it applies to life, and perhaps more specifically, yourself. I thought one of the really powerful things, minor spoiler, but just as you can probably imagine, you're going to see the Nuremberg trial itself. What I thought was absolutely just brilliant was the usage of the footage from concentration camps. So within the Nuremberg trials themselves, they presented, quote unquote, exclusive film of the concentration camps for the very first time. And so you're kind of watching it from the perspective of the people there at the trial, because up until that point, there was a lot of questions of like, what actually happened in these camps? You know, were they work camps, or like what was it? And there, definitively, they were able to show footage of the horrific events that took place and highlight how many locations there actually were to be able to systematically kill off millions of people, mostly of Jewish descent. And you stick with that portion for quite a bit. Now, it might feel gratuitous, but it doesn't, because it still utilizes that as a way to push the narrative. Because you're watching various people's reaction that you've gotten to know in that moment as they're watching this footage. So I thought that was a big highlight in terms of the filmmaking. And I also thought, like, just as an added bonus, which feels weird to say, like, the fact that in today's society, there's debate whether or not the Holocaust really happened. I do think it was a much needed reminder, you know, to say, like, yeah, it did. And here's what actually happened and how horrific those things were. Now, the movie runs 2 hours and almost 30 minutes. I don't think it ever feels slow. I think there's just certain things that story beat-wise could have been tightened up. And I actually would have, I think some of the things that I'm talking about as far as, like, for example, with the woman journalist, I think some of that stuff got taken out to create as short a runtime as they could, perhaps. So I'd be curious to see, 2 hour and 40-minute version of this, if not a 3 hour version, just to see, I don't know, I'd be curious. But regardless, I highly recommend seeing this movie, both for the filmmaking and for the subject matter. Now, there's times, I will say, that just because you have a movie about a serious topic doesn't mean that the movie ends up being, worth that, right? Or a good movie. Like, you don't automatically just get to pick a serious subject and, like, okay, that's what automatically makes the movie good. No, they picked a deep subject and managed to execute on it tremendously. And it's not a movie. Listen, it's a tough watch. It's a tough watch for sure. There's a lot of stuff there that you have to, as I said, process and sit with. That is not easy to swallow. But that's what makes movies like this important and worth watching. It's funny enough, right? There's this notion in therapy that, like, people say, like, oh, I love my therapist. Well, then they might not be challenging you enough, because part of therapy is to make you explore the things that you're trying to hide. And this movie being about a therapist and really looking at how to define evil and how it gets there, it goes in some dark territories for sure. So those are my thoughts on Nuremberg. And yeah, it really stuck with me. I would love to talk about it for people that have seen it. Comment down below. If you want to talk spoilers, by all means, just denote it as such. But like I said, it's not the easiest movie to recommend. Like, you have to put yourself in that mind space, but I would suggest people really go watch it. So thank you, as always, for taking the time to tune in. I truly appreciate you. I'll see you